Jen.
And I'm Karlee, and we're the new mom friends you didn't know you needed. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you will see we have our first guest in person who is not growing inside of Jen.
Yes.
Very
this
exciting.
Is Samantha.
Oh yes, I should say her name.
Yes.
This is Samantha. She is the force behind Bellies, which is the beautiful space that we are recording in today. If you've ever listened or seen our Instagram, you know we love Bellies. We talk all about it. It's actually where Jen picked me up. It's the origin of the Friendly Moms Club.
It is where we've spent a lot of time in our postpartum journey here.
Very exciting. So let me tell you about Samantha. She's a wife. She's a mom of 3 kiddos and 1 fur baby. She's a doula. She was the president of the Doula Services Association of BC during COVID. And she's also an entrepreneur. She's the owner of Bellies Inc. and the owners of Bellies Community Space, which is the lovely place we are filming today. So
you
welcome.
said that already, but that's okay.
Oh, well, you know what? It's that important. This is not my living room, and I want it to be.
I know, it does look very
Hashtag
pretty, but this is because it's
aesthetic goals.
I know, it is. And this pink couch that we're on and the pink chair, these are just staples.
Yeah. It only felt right to wear pink today, and we both did it without even talking.
I should have worn pink.
Your shirt has like a mauve
Yeah.
little...
We're still matching quite well without planning this. So
Well,
that's
well
good.
planned.
Yeah.
Well, unplanned.
Yes.
Unplanned. We like unplanned things, don't we?
Yes.
Yes. Well, welcome, Samantha. Yes. Welcome. Thanks for being our first guest.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. The two of your friendship love story has been a highlight of having Bellies. So.
Aw.
Love story.
That's very
Yeah,
exciting.
it's a love story.
It
I
is a
think
love
we never
story.
think of friendship in like a love story way, but
Should be.
it should be.
Yeah.
I have a few friends who are definitely
Totally.
I
Yeah.
have love stories with.
We're forever connected
Yeah.
now. Our
Yeah,
children
you're
are
stuck with
forever
me.
connected.
Totally.
Like it
It's a love
is.
story.
We have a
Yeah.
bank account together.
We
so.
do.
That's exactly. It's when you get a bank account.
Yeah.
This is
That's
real.
That is commitment.
official. That's official. That's it. So, welcome to the Friendly Moms podcast, our first guest. So, why don't you start us off? Oh, I was going to say too, we've never interviewed someone before, so if we suck, deal with it. We're learning. There's growing pains with starting a podcast.
Yes, this is one of them.
This is one of them.
We're gonna see how it goes.
Yeah.
But,
We actually, this is round 2. Jen forgot to hit record the first time, so
mom brain. It's a real
Mom
thing.
brain.
Mom brain, pregnancy brain combined.
together. That's rough.
Yes,
Double
postpartum and
whammy.
pregnancy at the same time is.
It's too much.
A lot.
But you're kicking butt.
Thank you.
So, Samantha, tell us about yourself, about your family.
Sure. So, my name's Samantha.
Welcome.
I'm originally from the Philippines. I was born there. I lived there till I was 18. My dad is Filipino and my mom is British. So I sort of always grew up in this like in between 2 worlds kind of thing, and it was a very interesting upbringing of like different cultures.
Like conflicting cultures, like very
Yeah.
different.
Very different cultures. And at that time, growing up, I'm a child of the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
I was born in the 80s. And at that time, there weren't very many white people where I grew up, and looking different and having a mom who looked different was quite an experience, but it definitely helped shape who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And then at 18, I moved to the UK for university. And then as soon as I graduated from university, I moved to Canada in 2007 to get married to my high school sweetheart.
Aww.
So he's Filipino-Canadian. We met in high school in the Philippines. I was 15. He had just turned 18. He hates when I say that. He's like, you were almost 16.
Yeah.
And I turned 18. I turned 18 like 3 days after we got together, or 3 days before. It's not counted. You make it sound so gross.
Oh, not gross
I was
at all.
15. He was 18.
Yep.
And we were
Love.
together in high school, and then long distance for 4 years. Hated living in the UK. Loved Canada just because it sort of felt like there was a lot of Filipinos here,
Mhm.
so it still felt like home.
Yeah.
But more organized and just like not like just different as well,
Yeah.
And so we made home. We came here in 2007, and then I moved to Pitt Meadows, which is where Bellies is, in 2014. Yeah,
That's really cool. I didn't know that you guys were high school sweethearts, and like you both came. That's really cool.
He's my one and only boyfriend, and I think this year is 22 years together.
Wow.
I did see you posted on Facebook. I don't remember the number, but I remember being like,
22.
wow.
That's really long.
That's a long
I
time.
know.
When you
3
say
kids
that, do you
later.
think like, how have we been together 22 years when I'm only 23? And then
Yeah.
you're like, wait, no, I'm
Yeah,
not.
all the time.
Yeah, like in my
No,
head,
I
was
know
like-
that I'm over 30,
Yeah.
but I can't quite math it in my head that I'm closer to 40 than I am to 30.
Yeah.
Not
That's
that I'm
fair.
worried about
No,
it or
but
anything. It's just like,
it's a
but
shift.
how? How
I
did that
know.
happen?
How does that work? Honestly, I'm 35, and on a regular basis, I'm like, I have to like count. And I'm like,
Yeah.
it's very hard.
Yeah.
But those are the least of our problems because we got a lot going on.
Yeah.
So tell us about Bellies Community Space. So we've talked about it before, but tell us a little bit about the classes, the programs, your philosophy,
Sure.
wherever you want to go.
So Bellies Community Space, well, I want to sort of start out by saying when I first became a doula almost a decade ago, I always dreamed of having this space that was like a collaborative space with different professionals and being able to run these community groups because I knew that from my own experience as a new parent, and especially like someone who immigrated to this country where I had I had a few friends, but not a ton. And I really missed that. And I could see what my other friends back home were having in that they had all these lifelong friends and I just didn't have that here. And so I really wanted this space where I could like just meet people that didn't feel so formal, just like a fun space. So I always wanted it, but I thought that's never going to happen because Vancouver real estate is wild. I'll never be able to afford an office. And then I bought Bellies in 2020.
Bellies Inc., right?
Yeah, Bellies Inc., which we can talk about more later. But I bought that in 2020, and I started out just in a bedroom in my house. But it blew up really quickly, and I was sort of struggling with being able to keep enough stock and all that stuff. So I was looking for a space, but everything was just so expensive. And then I found this space that is a minute away from my house. That's above the jiu-jitsu place that my kids go to, or now only one goes to. And so it just felt like, it's like 5 minutes from my kid, 3 minutes from my kid's school. It was just perfect. Yeah. But it was a really old building, really ugly. It was horrific when I got it.
It didn't look like this?
It didn't. It was all brown. There was no flooring. It used to be carpet. So they
like
pulled
the
it off.
Carpet too,
Yeah.
like
But they left all the millions of staples.
Oh, yes.
And
perfect for babies.
So I was able to get a really great deal on it.
Sweet, yeah.
And then after everything was signed, I brought my husband in, and my husband and I are big DIYers.
Yeah.
But he walked in and his face of horror, thinking, what the hell has she gotten us into now? My wife with her big ideas. So we did all of it ourselves. We had one painting party.
Wow.
Where I had friends come over to paint the walls. One of my friends thought we were doing like a drinking painting. So she was not dressed to paint my walls. Like, I should have made that clearer.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, we're going to nice wine.
Yeah, she was like dressed so nice. I was like, you look beautiful. And she's like, why do you look like that? And so we had a painting party, and then we opened in February last year. So yeah, last year, 2022.
Wow.
And started the groups right away. But essentially the space is a mixture of a community space and services. So we've got 2 RMTs who work out of here, and we're looking for one more to join us. And then I don't know how much the camera can see, but on the other side of the wall that we're sitting in is my dungeon, which is essentially where I keep all the stock for Bellies Inc.
Yeah.
And then this space that we're sitting in is our community space where we run our kinship postpartum group, which you guys are regulars.
We are.
We do our pregnancy. We don't do the pregnancy groups like we used to before. Now we just do like set topics on each month, but it's sort of a different format than we used to.
More like education?
Yeah, more education-based, and just more of a class structure as opposed to more of a sort of looser meetup.
You don't get loose until you have the baby, and then you
Because
realize.
you know what I found? We were having a really hard time filling the pregnancy groups. And I think it's because people don't think they need it until they're in postpartum, and then they're like, holy crap. Where are people? Exactly. And so we had a harder time, so we thought we're just gonna redo this and make it more class styled. And so far it's doing better that way, but definitely the postpartum stuff so easy.
Yeah.
Pregnancy stuff.
Everyone realizes they need support.
Yeah, exactly. And in pregnancy, no one thinks they need it, but if they start in pregnancy, it makes such a big difference.
Such a difference.
Later
let
on.
me tell you that I came to the car seat safety one with Michelle when I was, I don't even know how far along I was, but it would have been like, not that long after you started. And I thought like, I had a niece. I've used car seats. Like, I know car seats. But
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? It's a good way to meet people. Like, I'm going to go. It's not that far. Like, I can do this. It was a free class. Like, I was like, why not go? And I left being like, holy crap. I did not know anything about car seats. Like,
Yeah.
I think people think they're so much more prepared than they are. And then when they actually start learning things, they're like, wow, there's a lot more to this than we expected.
Exactly.
And everyone focuses on, I need to set up the nursery. I need to set up
Yeah.
this. But no one actually prepares for the birth, like
The regular,
breastfeeding,
the
like all of the
actual
other
stuff
stuff,
that
the
you
car
actually
seats,
need.
the like
Yeah.
child safety. Like no one.
There's so many things people don't consider. And I see
Yeah.
that all the time at work. In labor and delivery, people show up and they're like, oh, well, you'll teach me everything there is to know about a baby. I'm like, no, I'm here to make sure you and your baby are cared for medically.
Yeah.
And, there's teaching involved, but I can't go
It's
through
24 to
realistic.
48 hours.
No.
And I also teach prenatal, so I'm also a prenatal educator. So I teach My Powerful Birth. We have a class actually coming up, and we teach that in here. And that's really what our focus is with our prenatal classes. Is that I find, and I did it myself with my first pregnancy. I was the person who said, I'm just gonna go with the flow, and I didn't understand that if you go with the flow without any information, any education to begin with, then it's not your flow.
Yes.
Exactly. 'Cause
It's someone else's flow.
someone's telling you.
Yeah.
It's like your birth plan can be, my plan is to have no plan, but you need to have information
Yes.
so that when you're given, decisions to make, you actually have the information and the knowledge to
Yeah.
make the decision for you. Because
Exactly.
I see that a lot as well. People are like, well, I don't care. I'm like, well, you do care.
Yeah.
It's your body, it's your baby, and
Yeah.
your experience. Yeah, there's a lot. But anyways, Bellies.
Yes.
We talked about, there's the classes for prenatal, there's postpartum support groups. You also have yoga,
Yes, we have
prenatal.
prenatal
Oh,
and
yes.
Baby and Me.
Yeah, baby
Yeah.
and me, which we've done it all. And you have
We've done most of the things
infant
here.
feeding and breastfeeding prep classes,
Yeah.
newborn prep, prenatal education, and then you also have counseling.
Yeah, so we have a counselor who works out of here, Roxana Farnsworth. So she focuses on, I think she does a lot of relationship counseling and individual counseling as well. But Roxana has a background as an IBCLC, so she was an IBCLC for years, and now she's sort of switching more to counseling. But it's it's lovely to have, like, she looks at it from a very different scope than I feel a lot of other counselors.
That's who we
do.
met.
Yeah,
last
that's who
week,
you
right?
met last
Yes,
week.
loved her. Very, if you want to learn about ways to get things going on in the bedroom.
Oh yeah,
She's
I
your
missed
gal.
that
She's
one.
very-
I missed
fantastic.
this
Yeah.
class.
Very realistic and open and like sex positive
Yeah.
and no judgment. And I
The
feel
world
like
needs more of that.
people need to talk about sex more openly.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, I'm pretty open minded, and I'm never shy away from a conversation about that. And
Yeah.
just some of the things, and I came to one of the postpartum groups with her. The things she kind of got you thinking of, I was like, man, you are good at your job. Yeah,
I know, I was sad I missed that one.
yeah,
that's a good
it was
one.
good. I took some notes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
We'll have to debrief
I'll have to
this.
show you.
Yes.
Okay, so we talked about the driving force behind Bellies. You wanted community, you wanted like-minded people. Did you notice any lack of resources in the community as a doula? Because you were a doula before.
Yeah, so I was a doula before I started with Bellies, and I definitely saw that there wasn't really much out there when it got, like, there were always prenatal classes, but they were kind of more prenatal classes that
Not your style, or
that was more like, this is what happens, as opposed to what do you want to happen.
like help people learn what they actually want.
Yeah. And it was less about self-reflection and more about, this is the hospital protocols, and like, yes, it's good to know the hospital protocols, but just because it's a protocol doesn't mean that that's how it has to be.
Just because something's recommended in air quotes doesn't mean it actually you have to do it. Like there's some
Exactly.
things that your care team will feel more strongly about,
Sure.
but there's a lot of things that are just kind of like routine
Yeah.
that
don't necessarily make sense.
Yeah.
Or aren't evidence-based.
Yes.
And it's
Yes.
just that way because it's that way.
Yeah.
And so I knew that there was that missing. And I knew that that's pretty much where it ended in regards to what people were getting. And I knew postpartum, there wasn't very much. Like when I had my last baby 5 years ago, which feels like a long time now, I couldn't find any yoga, and I really wanted to do yoga. I couldn't find any groups, and I just had a really hard time finding that. So I knew I wanted that space to be here.
well, you're definitely filling in a gap, like a missing gap in the community, especially in the area we are, in Pitt Meadows, Maple Ridge, Langley. There's
Langley
lots
had
of
nothing.
new
Absolutely
families,
nothing.
Which is wild because Langley's like growing faster than anywhere else.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like,
I thought, I don't know how many nights I spent Googling like classes. I was like, there has to be yoga classes, Pilates, like stroller fitness. Like I used to work at a YMCA in Surrey, and this would have been like 14 years ago. Sounds like that makes me feel old. And they had these classes. So I'm like, this was a thing. It was called Fit for Two, I think. And it was this big company that did all these classes. And now their website is just like,
gone.
Like there's really not anything on their website. And I'm like, do they just not exist anymore? And I couldn't find anything. And I was just lucky that
I think the difficulty with anything perinatal period is that it's a cycle, right?
Yes.
So it's like you're having to find new people all the time.
Yes.
Which makes it hard. It's not, you're not going to get repeat people for very long.
Yes.
Yeah.
Except for you guys.
Yeah. I'm going to have like 8 babies so I can just keep coming back here. I'm going to be like 55 still popping out kids just to hang out at Bellies.
Yeah. And so why do you think Bellies has been successful this far, I guess?
I mean, I think for the most part, it's the people who found us. Like, you know, I'd love to get all credit for it, but it's not. I think people who came found us because they were searching for that connection, and then they made an effort afterwards. Like, because it's easy to come to a class and sit there and not talk to anybody. But the people who ended up coming were people who weren't just looking for information. They were really looking for community. And then that just helped spread the word further, right? People found a good spot here, a place that felt welcoming. But for me, that's more to do with who came. Like, it was just the people
we think
who
it's
found
more about
us.
you.
We do.
We do.
We've discussed
We
this.
actually
think it's you.
we made notes. So we think there's things you're doing differently. I said, like, we have notes on this because this is how we feel about this. I feel like you're going to a friend's house. So, yes, I was searching for a community, but I was also just, like, looking to do something to fill my time. And when I came here, I was like, it feels like you're at a friend's house. You feel welcome. You feel inviting. You're always here. So there's always a familiar face. I think, like, the second or third time I was here, I came a little bit early to feed Henry. And you're like, oh, here's a breastfeeding pillow. And I mentioned to one of my friends, I think I took a Snapchat. And I was like, oh, life is so much easier when places give you breastfeeding pillows. And she's like, where was that? And she was, like, shook that somewhere would do that. And I was like, she's having another baby soon, so we got to get her in here. And then you said
it was just a very safe place. Like, I felt safe asking questions. I didn't feel like someone was going to laugh at me because I didn't know certain questions. Like, anyone could ask anything, and you would never judge anyone. Like, you're just so welcoming, inviting. You talk to everyone. You make everyone feel like they're so welcome here, and that there's no...
It's a safe space.
And there's no discrimination. There's no, like, anyone and everyone is welcome.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that makes a big difference.
For sure. And the decor is fantastic. The atmosphere is, like, so inviting. It's beautiful.
Yes.
And Jen actually found something that you wrote in the...
No, you write it at the end of all your emails.
The end of your emails.
And I remember reading it the very first time before I came to a class, and I'll read it. We have it written down. We are already so proud of you for stepping out of your comfort zone and coming to join us. We hope this becomes a space of friendship, community, and solidarity as you go through your postpartum. And I remember reading that being like, she gets it. Like, this is a big step. Like, I read it and I was like, okay, like, the fact that you recognize and that, I know it's just a sentence in an email, but just saying, like, this is scary to come. And, like, that made me feel more comfortable coming after I read that. And it's such a simple thing to add at the bottom of an email, but it impacted me before I came, so I feel like it's just another way that you're so welcoming to everyone.
And moms need to hear they're doing a good job. They need people to tell them they're proud of them, and for you to say, like, I'm proud of you, even for, like, going to the website and putting in your email address, signing up, like, that is scary. That is so scary. And we're very outgoing. Like, social situations are not something that scare us, and they do for some people. And just seeing that, I was like, oh, people need that. So we think it's successful because of you. Yes. And I see where you're coming from, where you say the people that originally found Bellies were people looking for community, and the people who were willing to, like, share about it and tell their friends. But once you have a baby, I think everybody is actually that person. Do you know what I mean? Whether they are an outgoing social person or not, like, you need a community. You need a community of people going through the same thing as you. And yeah, you're like a nice mama bear auntie for everybody.
Thanks.
I love
That's
it.
really nice to hear.
Yes.
Yeah, well, we
could go on
appreciate
forever.
it. Yes, yeah. We're just going to make this whole podcast about Samantha. And you know what? I'm here for it.
I know. There's a lot to Samantha. We could talk about lots of different avenues
gosh,
here,
yes.
but we're kind of focusing more on the community space thing. But I also feel like you're just very educated, which makes a big difference. Like, it's not just...
You're not some chump.
Like, I could start a community sport group, but I have no background in, like, delivering babies. I could just be like, it's hard, and that would be it, like, the extent of my knowledge, right? Like, I don't actually...
I mean, I think, one of the things that really made me want to open this space is that, as a doula, I work so closely with people, right? Like, I'm spending countless number of hours with them. And then I go to these births, and not to get down, but a lot of times some really crappy stuff happened, and sometimes they were treated badly, and sometimes they just happened, whatever, right?
Our medical system is not set up to support births the way they are naturally intended. I'll say it. Yeah,
exactly. I'm glad you said.
I'm
I was
the enemy.
like, oh gosh, if birth comes up.
No. We're very much on the same page.
Okay, but I reached a point where, I had been doing this for so many years, and it felt like instead of things getting better, it felt like things were getting worse. And that takes a lot, like, because you fall in love with your clients. I fall in love with every single one of these people who hire me, because I don't ever take for granted the fact that this is a big deal, that they're inviting me to see their family grow. Like, that's a big deal. And then when I see them treated badly or see them not getting proper information and that kind of stuff, it really affects me. And so I slowed back down on birth work because I couldn't keep doing it to the level that I was. I was going to 4 births a month, which is a lot when you have little kids. But I still needed to feel like, I felt like there was still more I could do for parents, for new parents.
Yeah.
And that's why I love teaching prenatal classes. That's why I love doing these groups, because I felt like, well, I can't give all of myself the way that I gave myself as a birth doula, but I can still make a really big difference in people's pregnancies and postpartums this way, where I'm I still get to build these relationships with people, and I still get to make a difference, but it's not as
taxing.
Close.
It's not, you're not giving yourself...
And I don't
your
have
whole
to witness.
Self. Yes, you don't have to see the trauma over and over and over again, which Jen and I have talked about on the podcast, is the reason I struggled so much when I was pregnant, because it's very hard working in a hospital, especially in labor and delivery, when sometimes your like beliefs around labor are a little bit conflicting. And
I can imagine.
I'm kind of like in the middle where like I understand why things happen the way they do sometimes, but then I also don't understand when, doctors don't ask consent, or nurses don't ask consent, or people just, the way that they kind of like steamroll their patients into doing what is easiest and what they think is best. And sometimes they do think it's best, but that doesn't mean it's best for the patient.
Yeah.
And that's why I love doulas who actually really focus on education and less around telling their people what to do.
I think that's actually a really big misconception regarding doula work. I think a lot of people think that that's what's happening.
Yeah.
But what's actually happening in these conversations that we're having with our clients is these clients are telling us what they want.
Yeah.
And then they come into this space where it's not their space. They're walking into a place that feels really scary for most people.
Yeah.
And they don't know how to say what they're saying. But as a doula, we don't work for the hospital. We only work for the client. And we're not and we know what they want. And so sometimes we have to be the bad guy.
You have to be their voice.
And say what they want. And I can see that from an outsider's perspective, it looks like, oh, the doula's just telling them what to do.
Yeah.
But you didn't get to see the 6 hours of conversations that we had beforehand, right? I've never met, there's always good doulas and bad doulas, whatever, just like there's good of everything. Yeah. But I've never met a doula who said, my client has to do it this way. And I say all the time, a big line in the doula community is non-judgmental support. That's impossible, right? We all have our preferences. You have your I have my preferences. I only attend home births nowadays. Do I think hospital births are bad? No, of course not. I just don't want to go there.
I don't blame you.
I just don't want to go there. I just want to stay at home. And if my clients have to transfer, then we transfer and everything's fine. But that's my bias. And everyone who comes knows that.
Yeah.
And I love you and I respect you. And I think if that's where you're choosing, then that's a perfect place for you. And
you're just not the perfect person for them.
Yeah.
I like what you said about doulas, that they're like, them as doulas, they're not like speaking for their
No.
their do you call them clients, patients, people,
Clients.
but often that is what kind of translates in the hospital.
Yeah.
Often because the medical system doesn't give patients a voice. They kind of take it away, and a lot of people are scared to advocate for themselves or talk for themselves.
It's scary.
But it's a very scary place. So you need community, people.
And I'm not afraid to talk and say what I'm thinking, and I do this all the time at work. Like, I'm very upfront
Outspoken,
person,
yeah.
and I totally froze when like they took Jordan to the NICU and didn't tell me anything, and I was laying there like, I just didn't even know how to ask what was happening or ask for help or ask questions, and I'm like, I should ask, but like
you don't think to do it.
I just couldn't.
You're scared.
And
you don't know. Yeah.
And I typically am not like that. So I'm like, why? Why can't I ask these questions? Like, it's
It's a lot. There's a lot of like behind the scenes, like not red tape, but like technically as a nurse, I'm not allowed to update people on, or like parents on the baby, on the patients. Because if I was like, oh, they're going to NICU for whatever, for breathing support or this or that, technically that's out of my scope. But nurses have to do that. And sometimes it's nice having a doula there because they don't work for the hospital. They can say whatever they want to their patient, and they can actually fill them in, because we're supposed to wait for the doctor to like come around and update them. But they're doing other things. There's so many things. We need to have a whole podcast about this one day on. Maybe it can be like even geared towards people who work in hospitals. Some ways that we can, collaborate together and make it easier and better and birth less scary. Because it's scary.
I always just try to remember, like, when I'm in those moments, especially if I'm, like, in a more heated space, that, like, I truly believe that everybody is in here in this room because they want the best for that person. And our versions of the best aren't necessarily going to match.
Yes.
But if we're all here for them, then there's always a way.
Yeah.
You can collaborate. You can make it work together.
Almost always a way. I've certainly had to film some moments where there was no way.
Yeah.
But I feel like if you come into the birth with that sort of mindset, it keeps you open as a birth worker. And I feel like the people on the other end can do really well. It got to the point where I would go into certain hospitals and I'd be getting hugs by the nurses and stuff. And this was worked on, right? Like it took time for
Takes time to build
me
that relationship.
to trust them and for them to trust me.
Yes.
But yeah, it took a while.
Yeah.
I do think there's just a lot of misconceptions about doulas.
Yeah.
Like, I think I had a lot of misconceptions about doulas before, but coming here was really eye-opening to me, and I learned a lot. And I also wanted to get back to this other point and just say that I always appreciated that you are very open to share your own personal experiences, because I think that allows people to feel more comfortable too. And so, like, you were sharing your own experience with your own births and your babies and children and how they have been growing up. So I think that automatically makes everyone feel like,
I mean, at the end of the day, I'm just another mom. Like, I'm just mom, right?
Right.
And so I've been in those exact same spots, and I've just been exposed to just more.
A lot.
Yeah.
3 kids, 3 births. How many births do you think you've seen?
I stopped counting at probably at about the 70 mark, but I think I'm in the 100-ish.
Yeah, that's a lot of births.
Yeah.
A lot of labors. There's a lot you bring to the table for people who are pregnant or postpartum and in this whole perinatal world, because we don't talk about it enough. I'm going to blame the patriarchy, because
100%.
It's all men. It's all
100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where it's for some reason this like thing we don't talk about, but it's such a huge time for women and pregnant people. Like, that's another episode. The patriarchy. So let's get back to community.
Right.
Yeah, that's
what we're talking about.
Yes. No, but birth and all that jazz is very important too. So why is community so important specifically in the perinatal period? So either pregnancy, postpartum. We know postpartum, but pregnancy. Let's talk about that a little.
I think in pregnancy, well, there's always that saying, like, it takes a village to raise a child. And I think that starts in pregnancy. And I think that's so much of why we doubt ourselves and our ability to birth our babies and feed our babies and care for our babies, because we don't actually get to see very many people doing it.
It's true.
Right? Like, if you look at other parts of the world and even this own society long time ago, is much more community based. And that's because they had to rely on each other. And I feel like, especially like I'm coming from, a country that is still very much community based. My version of pregnancy and postpartum, from what I saw as a child growing up, was definitely like a family coming together time. And then I came here, and I had the privilege of having my mom come and live with me for 2-3 months after each child.
Amazing.
And I like her, so that's good. If you don't like them, that's not as good, but I like her a lot. But I was seeing my other friends, and they were like celebrating that they were in Superstore day 3 postpartum. And I was like thinking, what the heck?
Yeah, that's not what I know. Yeah.
And and then working with clients and like seeing this happening, especially in my earlier years as a doula, where I maybe wasn't as confident to be like, don't do that. Having these real conversations, I saw that there was just a lot of this sort of space of, if I have to get help, then I'm not doing it right. And I realized that part of it is, especially when I was having my eldest, we were in the thick of this like grind culture of like never stop working, hustle culture. And now it's definitely gotten better, but I think that it's leached into pregnancy and postpartum.
For sure.
Where it was like, it's me and my husband or my partner, and that's all we need. And everybody else who's trying to come in is just being disruptive. And it's not that. And I can understand it's hard, especially with family dynamics. Sometimes can be tricky. But I really think you're just making your life more difficult. Because we're not meant to do this alone. We are like, just as mammals, we are not solo. We are not solo mammals.
No,
we're
not
meant to be in a pack.
Yeah.
And it must have been a little bit of a shock when coming to Canada and seeing the way that our family systems work.
Yeah.
And then, because you came here before you got pregnant, right? And then knowing like, this is where I'm going to get pregnant, raise my kids. And I love that Bellies is kind of bringing in, not the old school, but like, or the East, I don't even know, a different way to approach community and building your village. And it doesn't have to be just your family, because some people don't have family. Some people don't like their family. Some like friends can become family, and you can help raise family or kids together. And I love that about the classes we've come to here, like the support groups. Everybody's babies are just kind of roaming about, and we're all feeding each other's babies, with permission, and they're all sharing toys. And it's so different other places where like Henry, my little guy, will like crawl over to see somebody. We were at the library and he was like trying to see somebody, and they like got up and left. And I was like, oh, like maybe they had to leave, but it was like such not a community feel, like where my baby's your baby while we're here. We're here. People are like holding each other's kids. They're all playing with each other's toys. And that's not a representation of how it happens everywhere. Like that is not just like the norm when you go to like mom and baby things. Like people are scared to like talk to other people or talk to other babies, but that's not how we're meant.
They don't want their toys to get slobber.
Exactly.
Or someone else's slobber on it.
Yeah.
Whatever, it's all
I know.
The same.
They're all gonna get sick
They're all
anyways.
just gross.
I know. They are all just gross.
I was gonna say that I know my mom was talking about when she had the kids, so she has 3. There's 3 of us. But she said like in their cul-de-sac they had neighbors and they would share babysitting. So like the one mom would take the other kids of the other families, and then they could get errands done and go grocery shopping, and they would all like help each other babysit so they could all get things done. And they weren't family, they were friends, that all neighbors, like
family,
and they all came together to help raise the kids and get things done.
They made their village.
But this was 30 plus years
I mean,
ago.
I have a pretty awesome cul-de-sac like that now too. It's like a huge double cul-de-sac. I always say we're the gooch.
Right in the middle.
And then these two
I love
these two balls around us. And my husband's like, everything is penis and vagina with you.
It is.
Like, it's the world you live in. It's not a bad thing.
My friend is the tip. I'm the gooch. The other one's the left ball, and the other one's the right ball.
No shaft.
No. Well, there's the shaft is just the road.
The road. Yeah.
But this cul-de-sac is so lovely because we have like when there's no rain. It's. Sometimes we'll have like 25 kids playing in front of our house.
See, and that's like,
it's what we need.
And to grow up in the Philippines, I grew up, in a very urban spot where I had high walls, I had a gate, I had a guard to like guard our house, and I could never walk anywhere. And then I would watch these American TV shows and movies and stuff where kids would ride their bikes to school and play in the cul-de-sac. And every day I'm like, they're living my childhood dream.
But now your kids get to live it.
They do.
That's amazing.
They definitely have an 80s upbringing where they're not home.
Yeah, but that kids should be outside.
I'm the one
playing
who
with
like
other
goes
kids.
out into the balcony when the sun's coming down and saying,
Yeah.
That doesn't happen like it used
No.
to.
Yeah,
Like,
I feel very lucky to find the space that we
sure.
found.
Yeah.
And I feel like a reason, well, I don't know, I'm not a a sociologist. I don't know why things happen in the world.
Okay.
But I would say the reason that that's not happening is people are so like resistant to blending their world, like creating a community. Like they're hesitant to like rely on neighbors. Like nobody goes to their neighbor anymore to ask for a cup of sugar.
Yeah,
like that's just it doesn't happen anymore. Like our lives are so separate. Like, and you're in that grind. You like wake up. You have to watch your kid while you're getting ready. You take them to either daycare or work or wherever. Like it's just so everything is so like isolating now in the world, and everyone's so fearful of other people. I don't know. So I
think people focus on their nuclear family.
Yes,
and
that's the word.
And I understand the idea behind it, saying like family comes first, my family comes first, 100%. But I don't just focus on my nuclear family because I know that like it makes me happy. Like the other week, one of my close guy friends who loves mountain biking took my 11-year-old mountain bike. I can't do that. So, and it made me so happy that we have these really close friendships with people outside, because I think it's important for kids as they grow up to have other adults who play not a parental figure, because you only have your parents, but who play an important role and like a mentorship role, and we have people like that. And I think that part of the reason why we have that is because I did do the work to do that when they were little, to build these people, to build that trust also with
for sure
different adults, right? And sometimes it's hard to find those people, but when you're able to go to a space like this, you're finding people who are in the exact same spot as you, and hopefully that those friendships can grow into, you know, when they are 11 years old, one can take them out mountain biking.
Okay, who's taking the kids
Not it.
What about Nanad? Jeff can't even ride a bike on like a smooth surface.
I don't know how to ride
it's not
a bike.
his skill, so
I have a tricycle.
But the amount of hours that we've spent with like almost every mom that we've met here, I've seen outside of Bellies.
And met their family.
And met
other children, met their partners. Some like even we've met some of their
really
parents.
Cool. Like to think that almost everyone that we've met, we've seen outside of this community. So
and that was the goal, right? The goal was like that friendship and community is actually built here beyond the hour and a half that we're together once a month. Like I didn't want it to just end at the hour and a half. So when I see you guys have these friendships and I see all your posts on like on Instagram, like showing each other, like it makes me so happy. And I'm like, oh my God, it worked.
Like this is what I
wanted. My plan worked.
This is it.
Well, I mean, it kind of goes into one of our other questions, maybe. But what would you say has kind of been the most meaningful experience? Like, what has been your favorite? Just like
it's really seeing the friendships that people have gotten from this space. You know, like when I see our walking group together, that makes me so happy that you all just started doing that. This podcast, I was like, oh my gosh, guys, they're starting a podcast.
Little babies.
They met here, now they're starting a podcast. Like it really does feel like, oh my gosh, like this idea of mine actually became a thing, and friendships are really being made. To fruition. And I hope it continues. Like I'm like, oh, this group's graduating out, everyone's going back to work, and you know, I'm a little sad about that because I only get to keep you guys on maternity leave. But
she'll be back. I'll be back.
I know, but I'm nervous
Thank God
to
for
come
Jen.
back because I'm like, now I need to do this all over again. I need to make friends again. And like it is scary, right? Like, and I've already done it, and I'm still nervous about doing it again. So
I feel confident that, like, for the reasons we mentioned, like why we love this space so much, that when you get that like new flock of fresh people coming in, like the same thing's gonna happen. You know, maybe we will be the only podcast born out of Bellies, but I think the way this space is set up, and it's so not just welcoming to the person coming in, but you facilitate those relationships because we have time before to talk. We have time after to talk. It's not like, okay, we're done, everybody leave. Like you sit and chat with people after, and people just naturally start forming those relationships with people. And then also the types of events you have here, people are very open and vulnerable, and like you kind of break down that, what's the word, when you, like an icebreaker, like you get past that. So then after the class or the group or the event, people can actually talk about things and bond over things, and not just like, oh, what car seat did you buy? Like it's more like, oh, tell me more about your relationship with your mother-in-law or your issues around intimacy, or, like they're real deep conversations that don't just happen at, the library or swimming lessons. Like you get us there, you break the ice.
Yeah. And I think I'm also really lucky that the people who I've brought in to do the talk, like I have a lot of really smart friends.
You do.
And
You have a great community.
I really have the most, and I always say like the best thing that ever happened about becoming a doula was the friendships that I've made, because I've met all these other people who care about their community too. And they're also smart, and they're also talented, and they're also loving, and I'm so happy that I get to bring them in here and that they're giving me their time to do this for the groups. And yeah, so like when I say it's a community space, like it's beyond just a community for you guys, but for me it feels like a community of my friends coming together, and I'm able to like, sometimes a lot of people don't think that they're experts in things, and so to be able to be like, shut up, you know what you're talking about, come here and tell people.
Exactly.
I'm glad that I can also do that for them, and that they're so freeing with their time as well.
For sure. Well, I feel like we should all maybe just buy a plot of land and build our own village, and everybody's welcome. But
We're gonna have to probably buy one like 20 hours away.
Yes.
Yeah,
in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah, this might not actually happen. But
real estate here.
Dreams.
Dreams. We can dream about that.
Maybe an apartment building is a
little... I mean, we could set up some beds in here. We could all live in Bellies. So
no showers.
No showers. I don't shower much anyways. So that's not a deal breaker.
Nothing a wet wipe can't solve.
Exactly. Baby wipe showers. Like, what did I do before I had baby wipes with me all the time?
No, really.
I just didn't shower.
Eventually, you do move out of them. I haven't bought a baby wipe in a while.
See?
How do you clean your clothes? Like, when you gotta stay.
No one pukes on me anymore.
Fair.
Yeah.
Fair. But kids, they have such sticky fingers.
That is true. But I just go, don't touch me with those fingers.
Back off.
You watch yourself.
They listen now. See, when they're old enough, they know.
They listen most of the time.
In air quotes, yes. Okay, let's go back to one more about getting people to come to the events. What do you think is the main barrier for pregnant and postpartum people for not participating in community events like this, or even events like at the library or swimming lessons? Like, why? Because there's so many great free events. So money reasons aside, what do you think is a barrier?
I think social anxiety is very real, especially like, let's not forget, we just had this huge thing, like this world where we didn't see people for a long time.
Oh yes,
and then all of a sudden, but yes, and then when we started Bellies, we started it in February 2022, where people were like just first starting to come out, and it felt really scary to people to bring their baby places.
Yes, a lot of anxiety around.
Yeah, and so babies. I think that's still, while obviously things are better now, that's still kind of going on, and I think that's still in the back of people's minds. So yeah, the social anxiety part, the worry around germs, I think is still high on people's minds. The figuring out how to fit it into their schedule. I think oftentimes we'll get lots of last minute cancellations, and sometimes it is because babies are sick often, like there's sniffing, and we don't want it to spread. But I think sometimes it's like, I had a really hard night, and I don't want to commit to something if I don't know how that night's gonna go.
For sure.
And that worry of like letting people down, I think that's another thing, is people don't want to let people down by signing up and saying that they're going and they're not going. And then I think I think people do have a hard time finding stuff. Yeah. Like what's actually available. Or like, I don't know. Those are my main things, I think.
We wrote a few. Some of them, so like the social anxiety, scared to go alone, to not know people. Yeah. That's always scary for the first time when you go somewhere new. But we also said like there's like stigma around like going to support groups, and either whether you're pregnant or postpartum. I think when people are pregnant, they're too scared to, and then they have a baby and they're like, hey, I don't care anymore. Like I need I need support. But for both of us, we've done a lot of therapy. So to us, we're like, we're here for it. And then also a big one we talked about is people feel like they're not worthy because, I don't have postpartum depression. I'm fine. There's nothing wrong with me. I don't need help with pregnancy. I don't need help with whatever. And then they don't think they need the community.
That's why I dropped the support.
Yes. Karlee was telling me that.
We were talking about that.
I used to do a lot. I used to have support in the names, and I dropped it because I think people imagined that it was this space where they had to like tell all their life story and like cry, and it's not that at all. So I just now just call it like for the kinship, I say the kinship postpartum group.
Yeah. It's a group.
But I like it. I think it takes away a little bit of that like
scariness.
The scariness for people who, especially,
and people think they don't need it.
Yes,
exactly.
I think all of us need it. I
they think
we
they
can all
don't
agree
need, like,
everyone could use it.
I think the formality of a support group, you know,
and we all need community, and we all do need support. Maybe not a support group. We all do. I'm just going to say
it's
we
a
do.
support group,
but yes, it's an undercover.
Don't
support
tell
group.
anybody. It's a support group.
Don't put it on the
it's
internet.
It's a social group.
It's a social group. Yeah, that's a good one.
It is
social.
Yeah.
We need mimosas.
Okay. So to end the episode, we're going to ask you just the last 2 questions.
Okay.
Here. So kind of the same question. What's one piece of advice that you give someone who just found out they were pregnant?
One piece of advice. Take my prenatal class. Just kidding.
That's great advice. Great advice.
MyPowerfulBirth.com.
Well, that's a given that people are going to do that.
My one thing is to find your group of people who you trust. Who you trust to not share just scary stuff. It's okay to share some scary stuff. Like, we can't hide from that. And it's okay to have those conversations. But there needs to be trust in the fact that they're sharing this because they love you and not to bring you down.
Exactly. They're not just telling you their scary birth story because that's what people do. Yeah.
No, they're doing it because and it's coming from a place of love. So really finding your people, I think, is going to be your top priority in pregnancy, because when you can find those people, then it makes everything else. Then you have people you can reach out to, who can refer things, who can, just really figure out who those people are. And if that's hard for you,
come to Bellies.
Then come to classes.
Exactly,
like that's one of the best things about doing a prenatal class is you do get to meet people
for sure.
earlier on.
And you hear about people who go to a prenatal class and then they keep in touch with the other moms and the dads and the babies, and then 35 years later they're still friends. Like, I love that.
I'm having dinner tonight with my June 2014, like the ones I will stay closest. Last month we hadn't seen each other for a while, and then last month I went with one of them to Beyonce, and she was there when I gave birth to Saul because she was a photographer, so she was my birth photographer. Yeah. And I was there with the daughter who came. I was her doula for that daughter.
Oh my goodness!
And
Full
then
circle
so we're like,
moment.
why aren't we seeing each other more often?
Yeah.
So we're having dinner tonight.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's great. See,
and our kids are 9.
You are. Wow. You need to get community tattooed on your forehead. I am community. You are. All right. So the last one here. What's one piece of advice you would give to a new mom or new parent?
It's the same thing. Really, that's what it comes down to, right? Like, we really need to find our people who we can reach out to. Like, when I'm talking about postpartum planning, for example, included in that is who's your 3 a.m. friend? You need a 3 a.m. friend, and they have to know that they're the 3 a.m. friend, so that
you were my 3 a.m. friend.
Yeah, because sometimes at 3 a.m. when you're so exhausted, you just need to bitch to somebody.
Yeah,
sorry, so
that's why you need to
you
get
just
it
need
out.
to be able to complain. And so really fostering those relationships in pregnancy so that you have them in postpartum, and really remembering that you're not supposed to do this alone.
You're not.
Yes.
Asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of strength.
Yeah.
I love that.
The reminder we all need.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think if we've learned anything from you, from coming here, from talking with you, it's just we need community. And it seems so scary to get it and to find it, but it's literally right there. But you do have to put yourself out there. It goes back to our first episode of How to Make Mom Friends, or our third, whatever that was. Yeah. You do have to put yourself out there a little bit. And it is scary and it's overwhelming. But then what you get back in return is don't make me
a million
cry.
Times worth
it's
it.
Worth it.
Because parenthood really is, even when you do have friends, parenthood is a really lonely experience.
So isolating.
Right? And when we don't take that effort, and sometimes you're going to have fails, you're going to have people who flake, you're going to have all that stuff. But we really do need to take the effort to find something. And it might not necessarily be a postpartum group. I was talking to you guys before we started recording how much I love my pottery group.
Yeah.
And how the friendships I've made. I have a 65-year-old really close friend now.
I love that.
Never thought I would.
Yeah. Pottery people.
But I love her, you know. But they're filling different parts of my cups that need filling.
Yes. For sure.
And having those friendships in different places. So it's not necessarily have to be a postpartum group or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's really just finding people who love what you love, or who can appreciate what you love, at least.
For sure. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
That kind of sums it up.
Yeah.
I think we're all in agreement is that a word? Agreement. Yeah. It is now. That pregnancy, birth, postpartum, none of that was meant to be like you're not meant to do that alone. And we know that when families have, did you write this? It's good.
No, she did. It's on our website.
Oh.
I was not me.
I was like, this is nice. Okay, so apparently this is from the Bellies website. I'm going to read it out and not summarize it. We believe that pregnancy, birth, and postpartum was never meant to be done alone. We know that when families have access to support and education in an atmosphere that celebrates their unique needs, they experience better outcomes, both physically and emotionally. I thought that was Jen just being brilliant, but that was Bellies.
It was just me being
that was
brilliant.
Samantha being brilliant.
I cannot take credit for that.
Yeah. That was so good.
Yes.
I loved it. Oh, that's our Mom Day mantra for today. I get it now.
If you would have
Sometimes.
it's okay. That's okay. It's all
Okay,
good.
rewind. I'll edit it in. So our Mom Day mantra today. But yeah, that's it. If we learned one thing, you need community, you need your people. We
Yeah.
can be your virtual people. If you live local, Bellies and Samantha can be your person. So
Yeah.
that's it. Anything else you want to add?
You guys didn't suck at interviewing.
Yeah.
Woo! Self high five. We did good.
You did it.
Yeah.
We did it. Our first
One interview down, a
Woo!
million more
Yes,
to go.
and
Here we go.
We hit record. Woo!
Yeah, so good.
Now
We did
do it
this.
all over
Yeah.
again.
Yes. Oh my God. Can you imagine? I mean, we could sit here and talk all day, but
I know.
anyways.
I have Potter this afternoon, so we're
Yeah,
not.
you gotta go. We're on a time limit. So happy Mom Day. Thanks for joining in. We'll put all the links for Bellies and everything down below because it's important. You gotta be here.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks for
Bye.
having me.
Bye-bye.
Bye.